In this video, we're going to talk about the power of loss, suffering, and sacrifice. I'll show you that such feelings are the true origin of the night. I'll show you how a lord is made and why the sacrifice of a maiden is required. I'll show you how, why, and when you became tarnished. Because the feelings of loss, suffering, grief, despair, these feelings are the dark. These dark notions twist the soul, giving rise to a twisting black hole, a total eclipse of the heart. And when you are a lord possessing a great rune, the nature of your soul is manifested within the soul of the world, the anima mundi, nature itself. This is how a grieving knight and an ancient heartbroken dragon gave rise to violent, twisting cataclysms that coincide with Eclipse-like mass casualty events. All these mysteries relate to one underlying fundamental truth in Elden Ring's universe: that loss and suffering create a twisting black hole. A note before we begin. This video is the first of 6 to be released one after another. These next 6 videos, along with 4 prior videos, collectively make up what I refer to as the black hole theory. Each video in this series focuses heavily on the many layers of meaning relating to this symbol, a black hole with a gold ring. I believe this to be the fundamental theory at the heart of Elden Ring, and I'm so excited to share all of it with all of you. YouTube's algorithm has been changing, and I've heard rumblings that people don't know when creators are uploading. To make sure that you don't miss the rest of this series, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. To unlock the answers to the lore mysteries I mentioned in the intro, I'll first need to show you 2 key patterns. The first is this: loss and suffering create a hole, a void, within our souls. The description of Hailstor's boss expedition, Night Aspect, says, "Beyond the boundless night there lies the hazy figure of a person. That is the night's origin, an enemy to the world. He is called the primordial Nightlord, and he's suggested to be the origin of the night." We know what Hailstor's origin was. His relic, Knight of the Lord, says, "The country lay in ruin. The man who once was knight had challenged the hero, but he too was no match. He fell, just another body in a great pile. But eventually he awoke, crawling out from underneath the others. Though he had failed to protect anything or anyone, he yet lived. And so he cursed the world. It was the dead of night, and from the sky poured down a great rain." I think there's also a parallel here between the primordial Nightlord and Manus, father of the Abyss from Dark Souls 1. Ancient Manus was clearly once human, but he became the father of the Abyss after his humanity went wild, eternally seeking his precious broken pendant. After you find one half of the broken pendant, Manus pulls you back in time, along with the character Marvelous Chester, who likely found the other half. This pendant is the key to understanding what caused Manus's humanity to go wild. As Princess Dusk describes,
"A wrenching nostalgia, a lost joy, an object of obsession, and a sincere hope to reclaim it. Could these thoughts belong to the beast from the abyss? But if that were true, then perhaps it is no beast after all."
Manus is heartbroken, devastated over a lost love. I've always thought that the broken pendant looks like half of a heart. This heartbreak, this loss, this grief is the source of the abyss. In Night Rain, the origin of the night, a similar kind of darkness, is no different. Duchess refers to night as the darkness, the cold, a void of purest black. The Nightlord is essentially a giant void. Night is known for devouring, swallowing everything. And Hailstor's arena contains an enormous vortex swirling around a black hole. Night's reign manifests as a gigantic cataclysm, pouring down corrosive rain from the sky, eroding away the world. But this isn't what it really is. It may be that Night's reign is just how the night manifests itself, and is a side effect, a consequence of Hailstor's experience with Night's true form. The utterly devastating pain, anger, and grief resulting from great loss. It's the void that's left from when you lose everything. Any one of us who has known grief knows how it feels like a hole in your heart. Night is the grief that feels like it devours you. Because while this enormous swirling vortex is quite frightening, the truly terrifying hole is the one that exists in our characters' souls. Traumatic events create a hole within us, a void, and the Night uses this to take root. In her journal, the Revenant recounts what the Recluse told her. Within your memories is a hole of not inconsequential size. It seems that the Night is using this toehold to take root. Likewise, Executor has a wound from their memories, the traumatic experience of their execution of the artist and subsequent suicide. This wound is outwardly expressed as a black gash in their stomach. As their other self says, after failing to return to the roots, your cursed frame was beholden to hope, and that only worsened the pain. The game provides a mechanism by which Night spreads. The Blade of Night is a blade fragment imbued with the power of Night, and it has a broken edge. Its description says, the dark substance slowly spreads, as if to restore the lost portion of the blade. The darkness, Night, spreads in order to restore what was lost. Loss causes Night to spread, as the broken, missing part of ourselves tries to fill the void. The reason why the Night manifests as Night's reign may be related to the circumstances of Hailstor's loss. Each of these Night of the Blank items that we get from the Nightlords can be used as relics. And we know what the other relics are. They're memories. Hailstor's Night of the Lord relic describes his memory of when everyone he loved and had fought for was killed, yet he remained as the sole survivor. This memory is the origin of the Night. The reason why the Night manifests as it does in Night Reign, as Night's reign, may be because this memory took place in the dead of night, when the sky poured down a great rain. But ultimately, the power of the Night comes from Hailstor's pain and grief, the hole in his heart. Hailstor possesses the primordial Nightlord's rune, which has the properties of a great rune. The Elden Ring represents the laws of the world, its natural order, and the great runes are shards of it, each one representing part of the order. As we learned from his ending, by taking the primordial Nightlord's rune for himself, Iron Eye hopes to fulfill Isolde's dream and wrest the power of the Night and bend the rules which govern our realm. Because Hailstor possesses the rune, he has the power to determine the laws of nature governing this realm. The nature of Hailstor's soul, on the micro level, is manifested at the macro level because he possesses this great rune. Night has become a twisted version of itself because the man who possesses the great rune governing this world has created such a world using the power of his rune. As Recluse says, we must put the night sky to rights to see its beauty once more. The issue with the night seems not to be the night sky, but this storm of Night's reign. In Shadow of the Erd Tree, Ramina's remembrance states, after the church was burned to the ground, Ramina discovered a twisted divine element, which she weaved into the baleful scarlet rot. Rot is a natural phenomenon that is part of the order of the world, what the game considers divine. But in the wake of trauma, Ramana found this divine element twisted, and she weaved it into a baleful scarlet rot. The natural order was twisted by trauma, pain, and loss. I bring this up to suggest that this twisting nature of pain could be what started the cataclysm, the swirling vortex we see in Hailstor's boss room and above the churches with the condemned. For Ramana, the traumatic event was Mesmer's crusade and the scorching of the land of shadow. For Hailstor, it was his country's ruin and the deaths of everyone around him. Which brings us to major takeaway number 2. Twisted nature comes from loss, pain, and suffering, which causes a hole or a void to form within our soul. In the game, twisting or a twisted nature is often associated with pain, grief, and suffering. The Lamenter's mask is a stone mask twisted into an expression of rapturous grief. The Dung Eater who wants to bring about an age of despair is described by Roderica as a repulsive, twisted malison. Dialos refers to the death of Lanya as a cruel twist of fate, but says, "Succumbing to the pain and sadness won't make me a champion, will it?" Like I said, Ramana discovered a twisted divine element in the wake of war, but she wasn't the only one. The Outer God heirloom tells us, the clan, who lost everything in the Great Fires, peered upon the corpse of their ancestor, normally an act of sanctity, and saw in its shadow a twisted deity. The clan had suffered such torment that the horrible thing was taken as an object of worship. The Blood Fiends also discovered a twisted deity. Quote, "Long ago, a subjugated tribe discovered a twisted deity among the ravages of war, and they were transformed into Blood Fiends. The Mother of Truth was their savior." The Mother of Truth desires a wound. She desires pain and sacrifice, and the Blood Fiends came to worship these ideas. The key takeaway here is that in the wake of torment, subjugation, and the ravages of war, the deity's nature twisted. The Skadu tree is described as twisted. As described by the Mantle of Thorns and Impenetrable Thorn sorceries, quote, "The image of the twisted Skadu tree is an edict. Denounce their ways, do them harm, for they have abandoned us." These sorceries are used by those who abandon the practice of incantations after devout faith rewarded them with only despair. The twisted Skadu tree is a symbol of the suffering and despair imposed on the people of the Shadow Realm due to the betrayal of Marika, Mesmer, and the forces of the Erd Tree. The remembrance of the Skadu tree sunflower elaborates. The Skadu tree is the shadow of the Erd Tree, born of dark notions that bear no sense of order, that twist and bend its stalk, rendering it brittle. Based on everything we've heard so far, doesn't it seem like these dark notions are things like grief, despair, and suffering, loss, pain, betrayal? Nowhere in the game is this mechanism better expressed than in the sorcery Eternal Darkness, the linchpin of this theory. Eternal Darkness is the forbidden sorcery of Celia, Town of Sorcery. Creates a space of darkness that draws in sorceries and incantations. Originally a lost sorcery of the Eternal City, the despair that brought about its ruin made manifest. This last line is saying that despair brought about the ruin of the Eternal City, but the wording is specifically saying this sorcery is the despair itself. This sorcery is despair manifested. This is what despair looks like, and it looks like a twisting black hole. Eternal Darkness links the three concepts we've been discussing so far in this video: despair and suffering, a black hole or void, and twisting or twisted nature. As we just discussed, twisting is associated with grief and suffering, which suggests that it is suffering which results in the creation of the whole, not the other way around. Whole first, then suffering because of the whole. And this difference matters. Because if pain and suffering are what create a black hole, which becomes a twisting vortex, then we have the mechanism for how the Nightlord's cataclysm was created. And we have the mechanism for how the hole in one's soul is formed in which the night takes purchase. This is the key finding that I want you to take away from this video. That loss causes suffering, which causes twisting, which creates a black hole. This phenomenon plays out on a macro level, within nature, and on a micro level, within one's soul. If we think of nature itself as being one's soul, the anima mundi or soul of the world, we can say that the storm of night forms within the soul of the world. Now, understanding this mechanism, I want to show you a few ways how this plays out at both the macro level and micro level across the game. By applying this theory, we can answer some of the lore mysteries. Let me first show you how this plays out on the micro level, how this black hole manifests within an individual. Recluse tells Revenant that the hole lies within her memories, and the priestess tells Executor there is a wound within their memories. In my Tree of Memories video, I suggested that the golden rune represents both our soul and our memory. At the center of the rune is a black hole surrounded by a ring of gold, as seen in Golden Rune 1. But then we see another black hole form in Hero's Rune 4, and this black hole is present in the Lord's Rune. Knowing what we know now, I think we can explain why this hole forms. You see, I think this black hole needs to be formed for one to be worthy of becoming a Lord. Bernal was a champion worthy of becoming a lord until his maiden threw herself into the fire. Vike inherits the frenzied flame to avoid sacrificing his maiden, tempted by Shabriri. Shabriri says this:
"You are about to sacrifice something precious, the life of a fair maiden, that you would toss into the fiery forge, only so that you may be lord. What a horrible thing to ponder. Your ascendancy requires her sacrifice, whether she wishes it or not."
Shabriri is telling us that in order to become a lord, we must sacrifice our maiden. We also have to sacrifice a maiden to become a Knight of Blood. To be anointed a Knight of Moog, Lord of Blood, we must soak the pure white oath cloth in the blood of a maiden. Since we're maidenless, Vare says the blood of anyone's maiden will do. But Vare also says, normally this ritual would involve killing one's own maiden. We are meant to sacrifice our own maiden. This ritual is done in service to Moog, who worships the Formless Mother. The Formless Mother is the Mother of Truth who desires a wound. She desires pain and sacrifice. Why is the sacrifice of a maiden required to become a lord? I think such a sacrifice is needed to create a Lord's Rune. Look at how the Lord's Rune has a black hole in its center. This black hole first appears in Hero's Rune 4, and the rune right before it, Hero's Rune 3, has this outer circle of what I can only describe as like a halo of flame. This halo seems to be pulling inward slightly, and I think it kinda looks like the Nihil Curse sigil, Moog's curse. I think perhaps that the sacrifice of one's maiden is what is needed to cause enough pain to create this black hole in the center. After all, maidens are connected to runes. It's the finger maidens who provide us the strength of runes in the first place. Symbolically, I see this as being a reference to burning and sacrifice, resulting in the creation of the black hole of pain, which creates a lord. But more evidence for this comes from Dark Souls 3. If you talk to Yol of Londor, you can choose to tease out your inner strength and receive a dark sigil, up to 5 of them. Quote, "A black gaping hole in the flesh that resembles the brand of an undead. The darkness of humanity seeps from this bottomless pitch black hole, the gap filled by the accumulation of the curse." As part of the Usurpation of Fire ending questline, you can marry Henri of Astoria. You can then kill Henri, your spouse, and receive 3 more dark sigils. This is DS3's version of sacrificing your maiden to gain power. Which brings me to another place where we see the death of a maiden. At the very start of the game, in the Chapel of Anticipation. Isn't it strange that we start the game here? It seems like it's super random. We're told that after death, the Tarnished must cross the fog in order to return to our home in the lands between. But we don't begin stepping foot onto the beach. Instead, the game begins with a very specific event, the death of our maiden. It's not confirmed that this woman is our maiden, but I mean, she has to be, right? Her death is what makes us maidenless. If I'm right about the pattern that suffering creates a twisting of the soul, which creates a black hole, I wonder if this event, the death of our maiden, created a hole in our soul. The first hole, seen in Golden Rune 1. In fact, it might be that this event is what caused us to become tarnished. The word tarnished comes from the French terne, meaning dull or dark. I think that what makes us tarnished is having this dark hole in the center of our souls. In Dark Souls, what defines the chosen undead is the brand of the dark sign, the ring of fire around the fragment of the dark soul we possess as humans. There is a visual parallel between the dark sign and Golden Rune 1. The chosen undead inherited their fragment of the dark soul from their ancestor, the furtive pygmy, who is actually Manus. Remember that the loss of Manus's beloved is what caused his humanity to go wild. From this began the abyss and the spread of darkness. What began the abyss, what caused the darkness to grow, what caused Manus's humanity to go wild, is that he lost his maiden. The origin of the dark was the loss of a maiden. The origin of the dark in our tarnished soul is also the loss of our maiden. This is when we truly become tarnished, and why this is when the game truly begins. As we're walking out of the chapel, darkness covers our face at the exact moment our dead maiden appears fully in frame. I don't know if that was intended or not, but that is some poignant symbolism that fits perfectly with the idea that this is the event which causes us to become tarnished. I don't think it's a coincidence that right in front of our maiden is a message telling us to become Elden Lord. Not only is this the event which starts that journey, it's the event which makes us becoming a lord possible. The reason why this black hole is required to become a lord is because this dark part of the soul has mass and gravity, as we discussed in our Runes Are Stars video. In short, the more mass one has, the more weight and thus strength they have, as suggested by the verdigris discus. And the more mass one has, the more gravity they have, and the more pull they have over the primeval current. We're going to talk about this in more detail in future videos, but this is the basic gist. Technically, we don't see the rune appearing to twist. The twisting nature seems to be missing in this particular instance, but we still have suffering and loss creating a black hole, so I thought it was most appropriate to bring up here. The notion that suffering and loss create a black hole in one's soul, their rune, fits perfectly with what I hypothesized in the Third Eye Blindness video. In that video, we explored how many characters in the game purposely blind themselves so they can see with their third eye, the rune, hence why it looks like an eye. I theorized that one way to open this third eye was through suffering. In real life, people who have near-death experiences report profound mental shifts afterwards. This phenomenon of consciousness may be what opening the third eye refers to. Shamans are traditionally associated with divination, prophecy, and spiritual enlightenment. The Jar shamans were whipped and tortured, and they have a carving in the middle of their forehead where the third eye normally is. We touch Hyetta's forehead where the third eye is, her eyes are painfully burned out, and then she's able to make prophecies about the One Great. After the fire giant rips off his foot, the eye in the middle of his chest opens, which is technically a third eye. This is another path to the same conclusion. Suffering creates a black hole in our soul, our rune. When used as our third eye, this black hole functions as a pupil. Next, let us look at how our mechanism is playing out on a macro level. Besides the Nightlord's cataclysm, I can show you another place where a mass sacrifice ritual involving torture and suffering created a swirling vortex that functions like a black hole. This is what created the storm in Farum Azula. As I spoke about briefly in my God of Night video, there are many parallels between Placidusax and Hailstor, and we're gonna investigate those parallels more deeply in a future video. What's important here is that their storms can be paralleled to one another. The cataclysms that appear randomly around Limveld look much closer to Farum Azula's tornado than the vortex in Hailstor's arena, which may be the metaphysical manifestation of the storm. And compare crumbling Farum Azula's depiction on the map to Hailstor's vortex. This vortex is the God of Night, and the Eye of the Storm is literally the Eye of Night. Bonfire VN made a video showing that as the Ring of Night Rain closes in, the clouds above form an eye shape, matching with the eye shape seen in the various Nightlord boss fights. Both Placidusax and Hailstor exist within the Eye of the Storm. Placidusax's arena, and most of Farum Azula, is built off the backs of suffering beasts. Literally. All these beasts embedded in these stone graves look like they've been tortured. Their mouths appear to be screaming in agony. This may have been intentional. We know Farum followed the Twin Bird religion, which practiced an ancient death ritual involving the death ritual spear, which is inspired by a Mayan ritual bloodletting tool. This ritual spear was used to pierce the victim and torture them prior to death. The visually equivalent blue branch sword talisman tells us, "The heart sings when one draws close to death, and thus does one cling so tenaciously to life, to render up a death worth offering." To render up a death worth offering sounds like the offering of a sacrifice. The beastmen of Farum Azula served the ancient dragons, whom they saw as gods. The beasts may have willingly allowed themselves to be tortured and buried in the stone as a sacrifice to their god. This idea was likely inspired by the ancient dragons buried in the earth, who protected their lord as a wall of living rock. Placidusax is protected because he lives at the heart of the storm beyond time. Thus, it seems like to protect their lord and hide him beyond time, the beast may have been used as part of a mass sacrifice ritual that involved causing enough suffering to create a twisting vortex. Additionally, Placidusax may be suffering from a great deal of pain. Florisax offers Placidusax her slumber as a form of solace. Solace is comfort in a time of distress or sadness. In my spirit medicine video, I theorized that Tialie's concoction is actually alcohol, and its recipe was used as medicine to help one forget pain and sadness. We are also told that it can put an ancient dragon to sleep. The parallel between Florisax's slumber and Tialie's concoction suggests to me that Placidusax is using the slumber Florisax offers him the same way that humans use alcohol, to forget his pain and sadness. Placidusax waits eternally beyond time for the return of his god who has fled. Why he needs solace might be because he's heartbroken. Dragon hearts play a big part in the lore. Look at the left side of Placidusax's body where his heart would be. His necks twist into the shape of a black hole. This broken neck in particular has red and blue colors within. It reminds me of the valves of the heart. This is the visual representation of Placidusax's heart, a twisting black hole. This is another parallel between Placidusax and Heolstor. They have both suffered a great loss. We've hypothesized that enough twisting will create a black hole. Time slows down around a black hole due to its intense gravitational pull. It's always sunny in Farum Azula, and it seems like the entire place is frozen in time. The vortex may be functioning like a black hole. Look at the cataclysms that randomly appear around the Limveld. They have this unique design, and there, in the cross-section between the top and bottom halves, we can see a black hole in the center of the storm. We don't see an explicit black hole in the center of the vortex, but one is there. The black hole in the center of Placidusax's soul. The Lord's Rune also looks like an eye. It is the eye of the storm. While we don't know for certain that Placidusax has a Lord's Rune, he is a Lord, and so I think we can infer that his soul has a similar hole. In fact, what this might be telling us is that it's not good enough to perform a mass sacrifice to create a Lord. The most important part of the ritual to create a Lord may be that the Lord needs to have lost something personal to them. While it's outside the scope of this video, I also want to make mention that the twin spiral design could be said to be twisting. It might be that to create a twisting twin spiral, you need to harness suffering. Maybe this explains why the spiral tower in Enir Elim is made of dead bodies who appear to be in agony, like the beasts in Farum Azula. After all, there are a decent number of twin bird motifs to be found around the tower. Next, I want to link the themes of suffering, loss, and black holes to another important symbol in the game. Eternal darkness is the best evidence we have tying together the concepts of suffering, loss, twisting, and black holes. There's something else that eternal darkness looks like. An eclipse. Golden Rune 1, which we just hypothesized was created from the loss of our maiden, also looks like an eclipse. Moreover, the primordial Nightlord's rune looks like the eclipse from Dark Souls 3, suggesting that what the rune represents is an eclipse. The eclipse is darkness during the middle of the day. It's the loss of the sun, the same as night, allowing us to unite the two concepts. In the famous Bonnie Tyler song, total eclipse of the heart is a metaphor representing the darkness that is left behind after losing one's true love. Fitting, given how most of our characters have experienced loss as part of their backstory and origin of the night in their lives. Heolstor's primordial Nightlord's rune, the rune that looks like the eclipse, is located in the center of his chest. This may be symbolic that Heolstor is experiencing a total eclipse of his heart, a loss of his love. Perhaps the loss of his consort, the Carian princess who gifted him this sword, a sword which looks like the Dark Moon Greatsword. This is where I turn once again to Berserk. We've seen the moment a black hole was created in Berserk, the moment of the eclipse. The build-up to and consequences of the eclipse event are amazing. I don't want to spoil it for you, so if you care, skip ahead to the time on the screen and pick up from there. In Berserk, the eclipse is the major event of the series. The eclipse is triggered when the character Griffith makes the choice to sacrifice that which is most precious to him. After having spent a full year being tortured in a place called the Tower of Rebirth, Griffith reaches a point of despair so great he attempts to unalive himself. Even after being rescued by his friends, it is in this mental state that he makes his decision. The exact moment Griffith utters the words, "I sacrifice," is the moment of the eclipse. He chooses to sacrifice the band of warriors he leads, and they are slaughtered by demons. The result of the eclipse is Griffith's rebirth as a member of the God Hand. The God Hand are the executors of the will of an entity known as the idea of evil, and they orchestrate events in order to affect the course of humanity and the universe, aka the flow of the current of causality. The eclipse happens in an interdimensional space outside of time, but in the real world, it manifests as an enormous, twisting vortex. Sound familiar? Simply, the punchline here is that profound despair and mass sacrifice create a giant black hole. This parallel tells us that what led to the birth of this cataclysm, this twisted version of night, was an eclipse-like mass casualty event. The effect of this ceremony is to cause the rebirth of an individual into a demigod-like state who acts on behalf of a god to manipulate events to act in accordance with the will of the god. Do you see now how this parallels Hailstor's creation as the primordial Nightlord? I don't think it's any coincidence that the vortex in Hailstor's arena looks almost identical to the vortex the idea of evil lives in. The idea of evil and Hailstor's vortex are basically one and the same. The vortex is the true god. It's associated with darkness in the abyss, born of emotions like grief, suffering, despair, loss, and betrayal. It's located beyond time but looks through time with its enormous eye, and it has the power to alter fate per the traces of night, which are the actual qualities of the Nightlord. The idea of evil is a manifestation of the dark of humanity's collective consciousness. I've theorized before that the large site of grace in the Round Table Hold is a collective consciousness, and in Night Rain we meet its darkened counterpart, which becomes dark by adding traces of night. Grace is also memory, and this large site of grace is collective memory. I think as we add more night to grace, we literally come to remember the Nightlord, who he is and where he is. This is the remembrance journey of the Round Table Hold itself. This is the Formless Master's remembrance. And like Revenant and Executor's remembrances, we have to face the darkness within the collective consciousness's memories, the idea of evil itself, and we must defeat it. A very special thank you to Banoon, who helped me capture clips for both this video and the last one, and hopefully future ones as well. Banoon, hands down, captures the most beautiful and cinematic footage of Elden Ring I've ever seen. In the description below, I've linked her channel and my favorite video of hers, a theory about Melina and the Sealing Tree. Since this video is at its conclusion, go check hers out next. You'll love it. If you enjoyed this video and feel that it contributes positively to the Elden Ring community, please leave a like to help boost its visibility within YouTube's algorithm. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. My fellow Tarnished, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.